about movies.
Hey, Frank, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Joe?
Good. I just raised your volume. So we have 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I hope I can fill it.
I'll preface it by saying that I had James Fleming Rasmussen on from Copenhagen.
Okay. And what did he have to say?
Well, he produced Keith Barbour's Echo Park, one of the first records I ever bought, which in 1969 was a big hit on the West Coast and East Coast and banned around the rest of the country because of Vietnam. And it was, one of those war songs about an old man in Echo Park. His son had died. So the old man walks through Echo Park. And he told us he was out in L.A. actually performing again with Keith Barbour all these years later.
All right.
Now he's 74, so that was 1969. It was over 40 years ago. Wow.
23 years. Yeah, time flies. So he was only a kid when he did these. So anyway, tonight's movie is Quicksand.
Well, tomorrow night's movie. We're a night ahead.
Tomorrow night's movie is Quicksand, and you've shown this before. And last time, as I recall, we talked mainly about Mickey Rooney, who was outgrowing the juvenile roles and wanted to get out of the Andy Hardy mold. And he and Peter Lorre partnered up and produced this movie. Their name isn't among the producing credits. And it's mainly Rooney's show. There's hardly a scene in the movie that doesn't have Mickey Rooney. He does quite a good job in it. One wishes he didn't look so guilty all the time. He couldn't fool anybody about not his guilt for the crimes he's committed. But otherwise, it's a good performance. And I talked a bit about Peter Lorre, how Lorre's had his best work was behind him, and unfortunately, a lot of what lay ahead for Lorre was kind of imitating himself. He played Peter Lorre, and he has a surprisingly small part in this movie. I imagine not much of it must have been edited out, because if he was a co-producer, I think his part would have been bigger. But he's good as he always was. Whether he was giving one of his best performances from the 40s or giving one of his kind of phoned-in performances where he's playing himself, which he tended to do in the 50s, he's always worth watching. He's one of the great actors of the cinema. But the man we didn't get a chance to talk about first time round was the director, Irving Pichel. And everybody has a different pronunciation for his last name. I understand it was supposed to be pronounced to rhyme with Mitchell, as in Pitchell, but there's no T in there. So people say Irving Pichel, Irving Pitchell.
I would have had a plaque, Pitch to Mitch, or Mitch to Pitch. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
And Pichel is an interesting man. He would die 3 years after this movie. When this movie was made, he was probably fighting his blacklisting in Hollywood. He was one of the writers and directors of 1947 that refused to cooperate with the House on Un-American Activities and basically told them to go to hell. They had no right to be asking the questions they were asking. And that made his career more difficult. He had directed some fairly large budget films before that, but he kept busy in the last 6-7 years of his life with much lower budget films. But as this movie shows, he didn't need a budget to get a lot of atmosphere and a lot of effect in there. And I think this is filmed on location, a lot of it, in Santa Monica Pier, California, and he knows how to work those shadows. The first time you showed this movie, you were in your film noir stage, where every movie was film noir, and even if it wasn't film noir, we had to make a connection to it. So
Well, I wasn't. I had stopped. I had done the programming for the Halloween stuff, and after that, it was up to the station,
Okay, well, we turned everything they gave us into film noir, whether they liked it or not.
And it worked. It worked.
Yes, okay. And this is a genuine film noir. And but getting back to Pitchell, he was people who know him, if they're horror movie fans, know him from Dracula's Daughter. He plays Xandor in that movie, 1936, and is very effective as the sidekick of Dracula's Daughter, the female vampire at the center of the movie, and he's quite the scene stealer in that movie. And he's also a director of two other, I shouldn't call them horror classics, but they're films that have been adopted by the horror genre. So you only hear about them when people are talking about horror, and that is The Most Dangerous Game, 1932, and She, 1935. And he's the director of them.
The H. Rider Haggard She?
Yep. The first sound version of it. And changed quite a bit. H. Rider Hager has she in Africa, this one has she in the Arctic, but the same basic plot. And neither one, I mean, she is a lot more talkative, and you know, the drama comes out of the dialogue more, even though they're going off to these exotic locales. The Most Dangerous Game, once it gets started, is a very active movie. I think Pichel's best film by far is one of the few movies that had me in tears as I was watching it, and that is an Orson Welles, Orson Welles Claudette Colbert movie from 1946, only a few years before this movie, and that is Tomorrow Is Forever, and that is a really gripping love story, and Pichel, like a lot of the people in movies that you see a long time but never really made it to the big time. He was very active in the Pasadena Playhouse and local theater. He did a lot of radio work. You can hear his voice in this movie. Near the end, there's a radio broadcast that they're looking for Mickey Rooney's character who's on the lam, and that's Irving Pichel's voice.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Actually, he did that in a handful of his movies. You know, Hitchcock always got a scene into his movies. Pichel often got his voice into the movies. He did a lot of voiceover work, did a lot of radio work, and he had one of those magnificent voices that I wouldn't say magnificent in that it was overpowering. He could use it to good effect in a number of places. And so he doesn't, he's not hamming it up. If anything, this is kind of a low-key radio announcer. He's not hammering away at you.
But that's still very cool. I mean, I like...
Yeah, he worked his voice in.
You know, and he died 3 years after this, huh?
4 years. This movie came out in 1950. Let me see if I get the exact date here, because I know March 1950, so that means it was probably filmed in 1949, and he would die age 63 in 1954.
Okay.
And, a lot of the guys that were blacklisted lived a long time, but a lot of them died shortly afterwards. And there was a very stressful period. Having your whole career put on the line for something you believe in is noble, but it's also very stressful. And his last, at least one of his last movies, he made outside of America. I'm surprised that after the blacklisting came in, he still was able to find some work in Hollywood, but he had to leave the country to find work, and he filmed his last two movies were funded by the Lutheran Church, I believe. One was Martin Luther. Who else would they fund? And one was called Day of Wrath. Both of them religious-themed movies, and I think both were made in England. Martin Luther was definitely made in England. I think the other one was as well.
Hey, Roman Polanski showed that you can go to France and still make movies and be get awards for the work you do, despite your whatever. We'll call it, with Roman, it's proclivities. With this fellow, Pichel, it's more of a choice.
Yeah, the Hollywood 19. Again, I have no idea what his politics was. A good number of the Hollywood 19 that we know a lot about were indeed members of the Communist Party, but there were some noble people that just said, you have no right to do this. You have no right to treat us this way. And did it on principle. I don't know enough about Pichel to say, what his political leanings were, but he stood firm.
Well, I'm going to give you an interesting nugget. According to IMDb, this movie was released on the 24th of March, 1950, which makes our airing tomorrow night on the eve of the, 62nd anniversary?
Well, there you go, yeah.
How cosmic.
Yeah, well, I should have mentioned that, because I assume that you guys are so well organized over there, but that's what you do.
Well, I'm well organized.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I'm well organized. I got my show planned right into May.
And to give us a segue into next week's movie is going to be Rocket Ship XM.
Which we talked about before.
We've talked about before, and we will talk about again next week, but there were two movies that year that really, you can't say they were the first movies that largely take place in rocket ships, but they were probably the first sound films that did. One was Rocket Ship XM, and one was Destination Moon, and Destination Moon was directed by Irving Pichel. So I don't know if that's in the public domain not, so that means that they not be able to get onto your roster. But
And the name of it again is
Destination Moon.
Destination Moon.
Destination Moon.
Yeah, and one of my guests, Duncan Jones, son of David Bowie, did a movie called Moon.
Okay.
I'm just, the moon, Destination Moon, it just triggers the thought process here.
And one of the things we'll be talking about next week when we talk about Rockship XM is, since we've done it before, and I think we had a lot of time that night, so we went through a lot of the cast and crew and some of the things about the movie. We'll talk about the science fiction genre, which is waking up as World War II ends and the late 40s proceed. You would have had to have a good memory to think of a movie that has rocket ships in it, because I think you had to go back to the silent era. I don't think we had any during the sound era until 1950, when Destination Moon and Rocket Ship XM appeared, and that changed the course. So Irving Pichel is here tonight, and he's not exactly here next week, but is the sister film to that, because they're often mentioned in the same breath, because they're kind of pioneering films, is Destination Moon.
And that is very cool, and I'm going to look into Destination Moon, because that sounds like something we should play if it's available.
Yeah, my guess is it is not, but I don't know.
We have exactly 4 minutes left. Are you working on a new book? I asked you that before.
I am working on a new book. My first book was basically a history book, Vampire of London, Battle Lugosi in London, Battle Lugosi in Britain, where I go into his 8 months in Britain in 1950, something that had never been written about directly before. My second book was
A curious volume of...
Forgotten Lore, which collects my essays on mainly 1930s and 40s horror movies.
And that's how we met, because you were kind enough to mail me a copy.
Yes, I mailed you a review copy, and that is how that's how you first heard about it.
How did you know, did you just find my old database of Varulven magazine?
I did not. I don't know about it.
Oh, I don't know how you found me, because I was writing book reviews for allmusic.com.
Yeah. Well, John, I usually don't look for reviews. They find me, I send them a copy, but
I didn't even remember that, but here we are. It's great. I'm thankful. You know, I did about 200 book reviews for AllMusic, and they never published any of the book reviews. They were getting ready to. They were going to have an allbook.com, and then they just dropped the whole project.
yeah, well,
That's a lot of book reviews.
well, do you have them online so people can read them?
No, I have some of them. I was on Web TV at the time, so I would email myself copies, and a lot of the data got lost. I have some of them.
Okay.
It was just, you know, that's life. I thought it would be published, you know, and but you know, it's life.
So, let me ask you a question. Of the 200 books you reviewed,
Yep.
how many would you say you gave good reviews to, and how many did you give bad reviews?
Well, the great thing was I was able to review the books of many of the authors that I have on the show, like Suzanne Vega's book. So I would generally gravitate towards books and authors that I was enamored of. And my 100th show was Suzanne Vega. And that's how I got hired at AllMusic. They bought my interview.
All right.
And then they shut down their magazine. They had a magazine, and they had hired me for the magazine, shut the magazine down, but brought me on board for the reviewing, which was interesting. Hey, I was getting a paycheck. It was nice, you know. But these companies morph and change, and then they sold for $82 million, which is a nice chunk of change, and pretty good, Frank. They thought of writing reviews, and they sold them for $82 million.
Well, I'm sure you're worth every penny of it, Joe.
I didn't get the $82 million, but
I know that. I know that.
you know that, and the rest of the world knows that. That's pretty funny. But, you know, I was part of something, and that was nice.
I was briefly a book reviewer, and then I learned that if I wrote a good review of a book, I had a friend for a month, and if I wrote a bad review, and most of my reviews were pretty negative, I had an enemy for life.
Yeah, they take it very seriously. We've got 45 seconds left, and so it's best to stay with the stuff that you know and that you love, you know?
Yeah, well, I did say the stuff that I know and I love, but I didn't think people wrote about it very well. So, as the list of enemies grew, I said, I better get out of this before before I can't go out anymore.
So you wrote your own, and I like the books you write. I honestly can say that. I think you know that. I'm thrilled that you're here on this platform, and we've got 15 seconds left. What would you like to say?
I'll say there is a third book. It's called I Saw What I Saw When I Saw It, and we will talk about it when we have some extra time, the next time we have extra time.
Frank Dello Stritto, thanks for being on Visual Radio.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
And that's it, folks.